The hotel room was silent except for the muffled hum of traffic outside. Mark stood at the doorway, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to Lisa's wide-eyed panic. "Was this where you planned your escape?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with cold fury. Lisa stammered, "Mark, I can explain," but he cut her off, tossing a folder onto the table. "Explain? No need. I've already pieced it together. Now let's see if your partner will stand by you when he learns the truth. But before we dive deeper into this gripping story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If you're enjoying this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. The soft hum of the television filled the living room as the family gathered for their usual Tuesday evening routine. Mark, a meticulous financial analyst with a calm demeanor, reclined in his chair, sipping coffee, proud of the disciplined life he had built, with his family as his anchor. Lisa, his warm and sociable wife who had been the heart of their family for 15 years, sat scrolling through her phone on the couch. Lately, however, her once genuine smile seemed forced, her eyes carrying secrets that were hard to ignore. Their twin sons, Matt and Michael, sprawled on the carpet, engrossed in an intense video game battle, Matt being quick-witted and reserved, while Michael thrived on humor and spontaneity. The peaceful evening took an unexpected turn when Mark, curious about a photo Lisa had mentioned earlier, reached for her phone. Lisa reacted swiftly, snatching it back with an awkward laugh and dismissing it with, "Oh, it's nothing special." Mark's chest tightened as unease crept in. The wife who had always been open now seemed secretive. Over the following days, Lisa's behavior became increasingly peculiar. Hushed phone calls in another room, sudden evening errands, and unconvincing explanations. Her once undivided attention to the family was now split with something or someone else. Mark's sharp instincts, honed through years of financial analysis, hinted that something deeper was unfolding. The man who once trusted his wife implicitly now found himself silently observing her every move, quietly questioning the foundation of the life they had built together. It started small, barely noticeable at first. Lisa excused herself from dinner one evening, saying a neighbor needed help finding their lost dog. Mark thought nothing of it. Lisa had always been kind, quick to assist anyone in need. But when she returned hours later, she seemed distant, her usual chatter replaced by vague answers. A week later, another excuse. Her friend's car had broken down and she had to give her a ride. Lisa left without finishing her meal, brushing off Mark's offer to accompany her. That night, she returned smelling faintly of unfamiliar cologne. Mark's stomach churned, but he said nothing. He convinced himself it was nothing, a coincidence perhaps. However, the excuses piled up. Lisa began forgetting family movie nights or leaving suddenly during weekends, always citing an urgent crisis. She claimed she was called to work late for unscheduled meetings, though her office was usually quiet after hours. Once, when Mark casually asked about a meeting, Lisa hesitated before responding, her tone unusually defensive. Mark's unease grew with every odd moment. He noticed how Lisa's phone never left her side, even when she moved from room to room. She no longer left it charging on the kitchen counter as before. Instead, she clutched it like a lifeline, glancing at the screen with the faintest hint of a smile. Determined to uncover the truth, Mark began observing her quietly. He noted subtle changes, a shift in her wardrobe, new makeup she hadn't worn in years. Her laughter, once warm and effortless, now sounded practiced, like an actress in a role she didn't fully believe. One night, while Lisa claimed to be at work, Mark called her office. The receptionist's polite confusion confirmed what he feared. There was no emergency meeting. Each revelation added a layer to his growing suspicion, and Mark's sharp mind, trained to spot inconsistencies, began piecing together a picture he didn't want to see. Yet, he held back, choosing silence over confrontation. For now. Mark needed clarity, proof, and, above all, a plan. Mark sat alone in the dimly lit study, his laptop glowing faintly on the desk. The silence of the house felt heavy, broken only by the faint ticking of the clock. After weeks of unease, he had finally reached his breaking point. With a steady hand and a racing heart, he installed monitoring software on Lisa's phone, a move he never imagined he would take. When the first notifications arrived, Mark hesitated. He stared at the screen, his breath shallow, before finally clicking. The app revealed a hidden account Lisa had created under the name Anna. Her profile picture was a candid shot of her laughing at a cafe, one he had taken years ago. The tagline beneath read, "Just a single woman, seeking adventure and connection." His fingers tightened around the mouse as he scrolled. Messages flooded the screen, conversations laced with flirtation and intrigue. "Anna, I can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. Mystery man, you looked stunning in that dress. Let's make it our secret spot." Mark's chest tightened. He recognized the dress she wore, a sleek black number she had recently bought, claiming it was for a work function. The details clicked into place, each word on the screen a dagger to his carefully constructed reality. He whispered into the quiet, as if seeking reassurance. How could she do this? His voice cracked, the weight of betrayal sinking in. Determined to dig deeper, Mark uncovered photos she had shared. One in particular stopped him cold. Lisa at a hotel bar, smiling at the camera. The timestamp was from a night she had claimed to be working late. In the background, Mark spotted the faint reflection of a man's hand resting on her shoulder. The next evening, Mark decided to test her. As Lisa prepared to leave for another meeting, he casually asked, "What time will you be back tonight?" She froze for a moment before answering, "Not too late, just a quick update with the team." Mark forced a smile. "Don't overwork yourself," he said, his voice betraying none of the storm inside. As soon as she left, he opened the monitoring app. Lisa's location confirmed she was headed to a hotel downtown. The chat messages poured in. "Mystery man. Room's ready. Can't wait to see you. Here." Mark felt as if the walls around him were closing in. The words blurred on the screen, but he forced himself to focus. This was no longer about suspicion. It was truth, undeniable and devastating. Sitting in the darkened room, Mark tried to rationalize. Maybe she felt unappreciated. Maybe I've been too focused on work. But deep down, he knew there was no justification for this. A wave of anger surged through him, followed by an aching sadness. He thought of their sons, laughing together during game nights, oblivious to the fracture forming in their family. "They don't deserve this," he muttered, his fists clenching. The chats revealed even more, planned trips, intimate confessions, and inside jokes that made Mark feel like a stranger in his own marriage. He noted key details, the name of the man, the places they frequented, even the coded phrases they used to conceal their rendezvous. One phrase stuck with him, "Our little escape." It echoed in his mind, twisting like a knife. Every time Lisa left the house with an excuse, she had been escaping from him, from their family, to live this secret life. As the night stretched on, Mark made a decision. Confrontation now would only give her the upper hand. He needed a plan, a way to protect his sons and salvage what he could of their shared life. He shut the laptop, his resolve hardening. For the first time in weeks, Mark felt a sense of clarity. Lisa wasn't just hiding secrets. She had built an entirely separate life, and Mark was determined to take control of the narrative. As the clock struck midnight, Mark whispered to himself, "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning." With that, he began drafting his next move. Every detail, every piece of evidence, every betrayal, he would use it all, not out of revenge, but to reclaim the life that Lisa had so recklessly shattered. Mark sat alone in his study, the weight of betrayal heavy on his chest. Yet instead of letting emotions consume him, he channeled his energy into action. His analytical mind, honed by years in finance, now served a new purpose, dismantling the web of lies Lisa had spun. The first step was duplication. Using the software already in place, Mark meticulously copied Lisa's phone data, every message, every photo, every calendar entry. The information painted a complete picture of her affair, from their flirtatious exchanges to the precise dates and times of their secret meetings. Mark cataloged everything with precision. "The devil is in the details," he muttered to himself, his fingers deftly organizing files into labeled folders. He knew that evidence, not accusations, would ultimately give him control. Mark's next move was strategic. Consulting an attorney he trusted. He didn't want a loud confrontation or messy fallout. He wanted to safeguard his sons and their future. During their first meeting, the attorney raised an eyebrow as Mark laid out the evidence. "This is thorough," the lawyer remarked, skimming through the documents. Erwin Jenkins was comparative science. Mark's tone was calm but resolute. "I need to ensure my sons are protected and that I don't lose everything I've worked for. I won't act impulsively." Together, they crafted a plan. Over weeks, Mark began subtly transferring shared assets into private accounts and secure investments. Each transaction was deliberate, designed to protect his financial standing while remaining undetectable. He refrained from anything drastic. His moves were small enough to avoid raising suspicion, but impactful enough to shield him from the fallout he anticipated. While securing his own position, Mark turned his attention to Lisa's relationship with her lover. He wasn't interested in direct confrontation. He wanted to erode their trust from within. Using a burner phone, Mark composed carefully worded anonymous messages to Lisa's lover. The first was subtle. "Does Anna ever tell you the truth? She's not who you think she is." He waited patiently, monitoring their conversations for the fallout. The effect was immediate. In the following days, Lisa's messages to her lover took on a defensive tone. "I don't know who sent that message," she wrote. "It's probably just spam. Don't listen to it." Mark smiled grimly. The seed of doubt was planted. In another message, he hinted at her duplicity. "Anna has a family. Did she mention her husband?" This time, the lover's response was curt. "What's going on, Anna? Is there something you're not telling me?" Lisa scrambled to reassure him, but the cracks were beginning to show. Mark wasn't simply exposing her. He was dismantling the fantasy she had built with her lover. One carefully placed word at a time. Mark's actions weren't born of malice, but of careful consideration. Confronting Lisa directly would lead to emotional outbursts and potentially disastrous consequences for their family. Instead, he chose a methodical approach, ensuring he retained control over the situation. By securing assets, he protected his son's future. By unraveling Lisa's relationship with her lover, he ensured she couldn't manipulate the situation to her advantage. And by gathering irrefutable evidence, he prepared for the day when he would confront her, not with anger, but with unassailable truth. As the weeks passed, Mark's preparation brought him a sense of clarity. He wasn't acting out of revenge alone. He was safeguarding his family from the chaos Lisa had introduced. He gazed at the folders on his laptop, the culmination of his efforts. "It's almost time," he whispered to himself, closing the laptop with a decisive click. An internal message flashed onto his computer, capturing his attention. He read the message. Though the pain of betrayal still lingered, Mark felt a quiet confidence growing within him. The endgame was near, and when the moment came, he would be ready. Mark leaned back in his chair, the faint sound of his keyboard still echoing in his ears. He had spent hours crafting the perfect narrative, one that would play on Lisa's confidence while securing his ultimate goal. The plan was delicate but airtight. Over dinner one evening, Mark casually mentioned a problem at work. "We're conducting an internal audit," he said, his tone carefully measured. "There's a discrepancy in one of our accounts. Nothing major, but enough to raise flags." Lisa glanced up from her plate, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "Is it serious?" she asked. "Potentially," Mark replied, deliberately vague. "I've been advised to consolidate assets temporarily, just to avoid any unnecessary complications. It's a precaution, really, to protect us." Her brow furrowed for a moment, but then she shrugged. If it's just a precaution, I'm sure it's fine. Mark noted her dismissive tone. She still believed she held the upper hand, that her secrets were safe. He suppressed a bitter smile. A few days later, Mark presented Lisa with a stack of documents. Lisa hesitated, her pen hovering over the paper. Is this really necessary? Mark met her eyes, his expression calm but resolute. Absolutely. It's just a formality, but it's important. We can't afford any missteps if the company's finances come under scrutiny. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she nodded. Okay, if it's for the family. Mark watched as she signed her name, each stroke of the pen sealing her fate. She handed the documents back with a faint smile, clearly satisfied that she was helping protect their family. Lisa's demeanor in the days that followed was almost smug. She moved through the house with a renewed air of control, her phone glued to her side as she whispered to her lover about their plans. Mark observed her quietly, noting the small details, the way she smirked when she thought he wasn't looking, the occasional glance of pity she cast in his direction, as though she believed he was oblivious. Her confidence was her undoing. She didn't question the legal jargon in the documents, didn't notice the subtle clauses that transferred ownership of shared assets to Mark. In her mind, she was still in control, orchestrating her escape while Mark remained none the wiser. While Lisa basked in her imagined superiority, Mark moved efficiently behind the scenes. The signed documents gave him the authority he needed to finalize the transfer of assets. Every move was calculated, every action deliberate. He maintained his composure, his interactions with Lisa free of tension or suspicion. He even complimented her on a new dress she wore one evening, his tone as warm as ever. She took it as proof that he was oblivious, never realizing it was all part of his plan to keep her off guard. Mark waited until everything was secure before setting the final piece of his plan in motion. He watched Lisa from across the room as she laughed at a message on her phone, her eyes lighting up with anticipation. She didn't see the storm gathering on the horizon. Mark, calm and steady, knew the truth. The moment she signed those papers, the foundation of her escape plan had crumbled, and soon she would realize the extent of what she had lost. The hotel lobby buzzed with muted conversations and the soft clinking of glasses. Mark stepped inside, his sharp eyes scanning the room. He moved with unhurried precision, his calm exterior masking the storm within. His heart pounded, but his resolve was unshaken. He spotted Lisa sitting at a corner table, her head tilted toward the man across from her. Their laughter was quiet, but intimate, and Mark felt a flicker of anger beneath his steady composure. He approached silently, his presence unnoticed until he stood just a few feet away. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, almost casual. "Just checking, Lisa," he began, his tone carrying a razor's edge. "Was your little accident the other day here?" Lisa froze. Her laughter died instantly, her face draining of color as she turned toward the sound of his voice. What are you doing here?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark's lips curved into a faint smile, though his eyes held none of the warmth they once did. "Oh, I'm just finishing the final piece of this puzzle." He gestured to the man sitting across from her, who shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I figured I should meet your friend." Lisa's lover, visibly uneasy, looked between them. "Anna," he muttered, glancing at her with confusion. "What's going on?" Mark raised an eyebrow, his gaze locking onto the man. "Anna? Is that what she told you?" He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Well, let me clear things up. Her name is Lisa. She's not single, and she's definitely not who you think she is." Lisa's hands trembled as she reached for her glass, knocking it slightly. "Mark, let's talk about this somewhere else," she pleaded, her voice shaking. But Mark stood firm, his voice steady. "No, I think here is fine. After all, I wouldn't want to interrupt your date, and it seems like he deserves the truth." Lisa's lover leaned back, his expression darkening. "Is this true? You're married?" Lisa opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her carefully constructed web of lies unraveled before her, thread by thread.
Least.
Mark took a step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. It's funny, isn't it? The little details. Like how you always left the house smelling of perfume you never wore at home, or the mysterious work meetings that didn't exist. You really thought I wouldn't notice? Lisa's voice cracked as she tried to regain control. It's not what it looks like. Spare me, Mark interrupted, his voice sharp but controlled. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a neatly folded envelope. Here's what it actually looks like. These are your messages, your photos, your little plans to run off and leave us behind. I have everything. Her lover's face hardened as he took in Mark's words. You lied to me, he spat, standing abruptly. You said you were free. Sarah, I think we're done here, Mark said coldly, cutting him off. Feel free to leave. This conversation isn't about you anymore. The man didn't hesitate. He grabbed his coat and walked out, leaving Lisa alone to face the quiet fury in Mark's eyes. Lisa slumped back in her chair, tears welling in her eyes. Mark, please, let's talk about this. I can explain. Mark tilted his head slightly, his gaze unrelenting. Explain? Go ahead. Explain how you plan to leave me, leave our boys, and build a life with someone you barely know. Tears streaked her face as she whispered, I made a mistake. I didn't mean. No, Lisa, Mark said, his voice softer now, almost pitying. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, a series of choices. And now, you'll have to live with them. He straightened, slipping the envelope back into his pocket. I've already taken care of everything. The house, the accounts, the custody of our children. You gave me the power to do that when you signed those papers. Lisa gasped, realization dawning on her. What do you mean? Mark leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a near whisper. It's over, Lisa. You've lost everything. But don't worry, I'll take care of the boys. They deserve better. He turned without another word, leaving Lisa alone in the dimly lit corner of the hotel. Her trembling hands clutched the edge of the table as the full weight of her choices crashed down around her. And Mark walked out into the night, his steps steady, his heart lighter than it had been in months. Lisa sat frozen, her hands clenched in her lap, her tear-streaked face turned downward. The silence that hung in the room after Mark's departure from the hotel was unbearable, but now, sitting in their living room face to face, the weight of what was to come pressed down like a suffocating blanket. Finally, Lisa broke the silence, her voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to get this far, Mark. It wasn't supposed to end like this. Mark leaned back, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Go on, he said coldly, his eyes fixed on hers. Tell me. Tell me the truth. For once. She hesitated, her breath hitching. It started as a distraction. I felt invisible, like I wasn't important anymore. Then I met him. At first, it was just texts, calls, nothing serious. But then, he made me feel alive, Mark. He promised we could leave everything behind, start fresh. I thought I deserved more. Mark's expression didn't change, but the faint tightening of his jaw betrayed the storm brewing within. So, what was the plan, Lisa? Leave me, leave our sons, and run away with him? That was your brilliant escape? She nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. I was going to tell you, eventually, but I didn't know how to explain. I thought, maybe you'd be fine without me. Mark's laugh was bitter and sharp. Fine without you? You mean while you emptied our bank accounts and left me to pick up the pieces for our boys? Was that your idea of fairness? Without a word, Mark reached for a folder on the table and opened it, pulling out pages of printed messages, screenshots, and financial records. He spread them out before Lisa like pieces of evidence in a courtroom. These are the chats you thought I wouldn't find, Mark said, his tone cold and precise. And here, this is the profile you created to hide your identity. Anna, the single woman looking for adventure. Romantic, isn't it? Lisa buried her face in her hands, sobbing. I didn't mean to hurt you. Mark ignored her, continuing, and this? He pointed to a printout of her lover's financial records, which he had acquired through careful investigation. This is your charming prince. You didn't think to question why he was so interested in you? Here's the answer. He's broke, Lisa. The only thing he cared about was what you could give him. Her head snapped up, her face pale. What are you talking about? Mark leaned forward, his voice low and steady. Your so-called lover has a history of targeting women like you. Women with assets, women who believe his lies. He was never going to run away with you, Lisa. He was going to drain you dry and leave you with nothing. Lisa's lips quivered, and she shook her head as if trying to dispel the truth. No. No, that can't be. He loves me. Mark's gaze was unflinching. Does he? Then why did he leave the hotel without a fight when I confronted you both? Why didn't he stay to defend you? You've been nothing but a stepping stone to him. Lisa's sobs grew louder as the reality of Mark's words sank in. Everything she had believed, every promise her lover had made, unraveled before her eyes. She looked at Mark, her voice a whisper. How did it come to this? Mark stood, his posture calm yet commanding. Because you chose this, Lisa. You chose lies over honesty, selfishness over loyalty, and now you're left with nothing but regret. He gathered the evidence back into the folder, his movements deliberate. I've already ensured the boys and I are protected. You can stay here for now, but I'll be filing for divorce. And don't worry, you'll have just enough to get by. But don't expect sympathy, Lisa. You made your bed. Mark paused at the doorway, his back to her. I trusted you once, but trust? Once it's gone forever. With that, he walked away, leaving Lisa alone in the silence of their once shared home. The truth, brutal and undeniable, now stood between them, an unbridgeable chasm that Lisa had created with her own choices. And as the weight of her betrayal settled on her shoulders, she realized she was utterly and completely alone. The courtroom was silent as the judge's gavel struck the desk. Lisa barely registered the words being spoken, her mind numb. Full custody is awarded to the father, the judge declared. Mark, seated a few feet away, didn't so much as glance in her direction. It was over. In the weeks that followed, Lisa's life unraveled completely. The once complexible suburban home she had taken for granted was no longer hers. Mark had sold it, relocating with the boys to a new city. The joint accounts she had relied on were empty, their funds legally moved under Mark's sole control. The financial safety net she had always assumed would be there was gone, leaving her stranded. Her lover had been the first to abandon her. Upon learning that Lisa no longer had access to her family's wealth, he disappeared without a word. Calls went unanswered, messages left unread. Lisa had gambled everything on his promises, and now she had nothing to show for it but heartbreak and shame. Her social circle, once lively, dwindled rapidly. Friends she had confided in turned distant, their pity palpable. Family members avoided her calls, their trust in her shattered. Lisa was left with the cold realization that she had burned every bridge, all for a fantasy that had crumbled like ash. Lisa sat alone in a tiny, sparsely furnished apartment. The sound of the clock ticking on the wall filled the silence, a cruel reminder of how empty her life had become. The laughter of her sons, once the soundtrack of her evenings, was gone. The absence was a gaping void that she could neither fill nor escape. She scrolled through old photos on her phone. Family vacations, birthdays, moments of joy now tinged with bitter regret. Tears welled in her eyes as she lingered on a picture of Matt and Michael, their young faces beaming as they stood between her and Mark. "What have I done?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The weight of her choices bore down on her. suffocating in its intensity. Every lie, every secret meeting, every selfish decision had led her here. She had traded a life of stability and love for fleeting excitement. And now she was paying the price. As days turned into weeks, Lisa's regret deepened. She had no one to blame but herself. The betrayal she had inflicted on Mark, on her children, now felt like a poison coursing through her veins. She understood too late that trust, once broken, could never be fully repaired. Alone in her solitude, Lisa realized the harsh truth. She had destroyed her own life. And while the world around her moved on, she was left behind, a shadow of the woman she once was. The moving truck pulled away, leaving Mark and his sons standing on the driveway of their new home. The house wasn't grand, but it radiated warmth, a fresh start in every sense. The quiet neighborhood was a far cry from their old life, yet it felt like exactly what they needed. Mark took a deep breath, savoring the crisp morning air. The weight that had pressed on his shoulders for months seemed to lift as he watched Matt and Michael race each other to claim their bedrooms. Their laughter filled the space, a sound he hadn't realized he missed so deeply. The days turned into weeks, and Mark found solace in the rhythm of his new life. He dedicated his time to his sons, helping with homework, cheering at their soccer games, and rediscovering the simple joys of fatherhood. The scars of betrayal were still there, but each moment spent with his boys added another layer of healing. Mark also found joy in unexpected places. Local community events, weekend hikes, and quiet evenings with a good book. Life, though different, began to feel whole again. It was during one of these moments of quiet renewal that Mark met Anna. She wasn't who he expected. There was no pretense, no games. She was intelligent, kind, and had an energy that drew people in without trying. They first crossed paths at a library event, where a shared appreciation for classic literature sparked a conversation that flowed effortlessly. Over time, Anna became a source of light in Mark's life. She listened without judgment, offering empathy and understanding where he needed it most. Her laughter reminded him that joy was still possible, even after heartbreak. Anna wasn't just a person. She became a symbol of Mark's rebirth. She represented the life he had fought to reclaim, a future shaped not by pain, but by resilience and hope. As Mark stood on his porch one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and orange, he felt something he hadn't in a long time: peace. The past no longer defined him. It was simply a part of the journey that led to this moment. And in that moment, Mark knew he and his sons were exactly where they were meant to be. Years had passed, but for Lisa, time did little to dull the ache of regret. She stared at her phone, Mark's number dialed but not yet called. Her fingers hovered over the screen, trembling. The silence of her small apartment felt heavier than ever, each empty room a reminder of what she had lost. Finally, she pressed the call button. When Mark's voice answered, calm and steady, she felt a lump rise in her throat. "Mark?" she began hesitantly, her voice wavering. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I was selfish. I didn't think about what I was throwing away." Mark listened in silence, his resolve unshaken. "Lisa," he said after a pause, his tone firm but not unkind, "I appreciate you saying that, but there's no going back. What's done is done. I've moved on, and so have the boys." Her plea was almost desperate. "Can we at least meet? Talk? I want to see them." Mark interrupted gently but firmly. "I'll help where I can, financially, for the boys' sake, but that's as far as it goes." The call ended with a quiet click, leaving Lisa to stare into the empty room once more. The gulf between her and the life she had destroyed felt wider than ever. Mark stood on the sidelines of a soccer field, watching Matt and Michael laugh with their teammates. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow over the scene. He couldn't help but smile. His sons were thriving, their bond with him stronger than ever. In the quiet moments after they returned home, Mark reflected on how far they had come. He leaned against the porch railing, the night breeze cool against his face. It's not about revenge, he thought, his gaze fixed on the stars. It never was. The real victory isn't in anger or retribution. It's in building something better, for them and for myself. Mark's mind lingered on a thought that had become his guiding principle. The best revenge is to live well and protect the ones you love. With that, he turned back to the house, ready to create another memory with his boys, knowing their future was built on trust, resilience, and hope. Mark's days were filled with purpose and joy. Morning coffee on his sunlit porch, weekend hikes with Matt and Michael, and quiet evenings spent reading with Anna by his side. He had built a life of peace, rooted in love and integrity, where the echoes of the past no longer held power over him. Meanwhile, Lisa sat alone in her dimly lit apartment, her world stagnant and shadowed by regret. The laughter and warmth she had once taken for granted were distant memories, replaced by silence and the heavy weight of her choices. Mark's journey reminded him daily, the best way to honor pain is to grow beyond it. And as he looked forward to the future, Lisa remained tethered to the past, unable to escape the life she had chosen.